She's just, she's shiny haired, style section, Vera Wang, and I'm, the sex column they run next to ads for penile implants.
Who was the chosen one? Natasha when she married Big first and was exactly his type? Or Carrie, who after almost 10 years of relationship was finally able to tame him and marry him until his death? And is it really that important to know who the chosen one was? There seems to be a general consensus that Natasha won this argument, which is why Carrie remained obsessed with her for so long. But could there be a possibility that Natasha was equally obsessed with Carrie in this matter? Why is there an obsession with the other one? It's everywhere. In the media, in music, in memes, and in our daily lives. There always seems to be someone whose existence makes even the most self-assured people question their own value, especially when it comes to our place in someone else's mind. Countless edits have been created that enhance the dramatism of not being the chosen one, something that to a certain extent glorifies the pain of being the one who lost, the one who wasn't enough even when you got what you wanted.
You understand? You're the other woman.
No! You're married to me! She's the other woman!
In some cases, although you might have won the affection or the position you crave, there's always a part of you on the lookout for that person, the person who could take away everything you work hard for. In situations like this, one of both parties can develop an over-identification with this label and become obsessed with the one who was chosen, whether that is the main partner, the one on the side, or the one who got away. We can see this dynamic with Carrie, who was obsessed with Natasha while she was married to Big, with the small but very possible chance that Natasha might have felt the same way when Big was with Carrie. This situation leaves them in a cycle where they are constantly thinking about each other, more than they are constantly thinking about what was lost with Big. In their minds, there's a ruminating question. What made the other woman so special? What does she have that I don't? Why was she chosen over me? And you know that I think that if that happens in fiction, it can be applicable to real life as well. And today we'll talk about the reality behind the myth of being the chosen one.
Ladies, I am having an epiphany. The world is made up of two types of women, the simple girls and the Katy girls. I am a Katy girl.
Oh girl, you are not. Not at all, not even close. Well, maybe a little. In Season 2, Episode 18, X and the City, Carrie explored the thesis between two types of girls, the simple girl and the Katy girl, inspired by the 1973 movie The Way We Were, where the protagonist, Katy, played by Barbra Streisand, is a rebellious, fiery woman who falls for the laid-back, easygoing Hubble, played by Robert Redford. So Carrie used the concept of the simple girl to identify Natasha as someone who's proper, composed, elegant and collected, but boring and lacking any substance or intelligence, against her Katy girl, which is obviously herself, as a complex but daring woman who doesn't conform to societal expectations and is messy but interesting and smart. However, the main reason she pointed out this similarity between her and Katy is because by the end of the movie, spoiler alert by the way, Hubble and Katy break up and he marries another woman. Supposedly a woman with simple straight hair, just like Carrie, Big and Natasha. Although there are many similarities between Katy and Carrie, like their undying and pushy devotion to Big and Hubble, there are many differences between the reasons their relationships have failed. Katy was an idealist, politically involved, and a fierce defender of her own beliefs to make the world better.
After the war,
It'll be as crummy as it was before the war, you racist fink.
Oh.
Hubble, on the other hand, who is a writer and an emerging TV screenwriter, wanted a more comfortable life and wasn't as involved in these causes like her, but he made sure he did enough on his side to support her. They both tried to find a middle ground between their vastly different lifestyles, only to find out by the end of the movie that their love wasn't going to overcome the dissatisfaction with the other's ideals or lack thereof. Then they decided to separate and find a better path for each of them. Hubble remarried a girl with quote-unquote simple hair, but Katy also remarried what I assume is a more suitable partner for her. And even though they chose their own paths instead of each other, you can see that their love was still alive and burning as the way it was when they were together years ago. And this is why the interpretation Carrie and her friends give in Sex and the City bothers me so much. Because Carrie and Big didn't break up for the same reasons. I mean, the outcomes are vastly similar, but Carrie was complex, but not as complex as Katy. Big wasn't as committed as Hubble, and most important of all, Natasha wasn't as simple as the simple girls in the movie. So the root situation is completely different as a whole. Hubble and Katy loved each other and tried to live a life together that didn't fully mesh, and the third-party involvement that happened later in the movie was a side consequence of that chaos. Carrie and Big also wanted different things. Mainly, Carrie wanted Big, and Big didn't want Carrie. This wasn't about ideals or lifestyle. The main reason Big didn't choose Carrie is because he wanted someone like Natasha, or most likely, he was already involved with her.
Why wasn't it me?
Carrie.
No, seriously.
Big chose to marry Natasha because she was a more socially acceptable partner for him. She was elegant, sophisticated, and beautiful. And he left Carrie because she was demanding a level of commitment he didn't want to give her, and she was constantly lashing out in unpredictable ways when she was getting, rightfully so, confused by his behavior.
String me along for 2 years and then you marry some 25-year-old girl after only 5 months?
So the simple girl versus Katy girl discourse Carrie created in this scene is simply misplaced frustration focused on the wrong person. Big owed Carrie clarity, and since he didn't give it to her, she latched onto the idea of what Natasha represented that she didn't have herself. Instead of reacting against Big for being unclear and immature, she obsessed over Natasha and everything she is that Carrie isn't. And since Carrie is in constant search for this clarity, she measures every single part of herself against Natasha to try to find what she lacked, that she excelled on, and what made her be chosen by Big. And although this behavior could be classified as childish or immature, it's far more common than we think, in real life and by extension in pop culture. There's always going to be a discourse about the other girl, whether that is an ex-partner of someone we're currently dating or the new partner of someone we're involved with at some point, or in some cases the one we are competing against for someone else's attention. In relationships, they always end up being the ghosts that we measure ourselves against even if we don't have a good reason to do so. And this is not only a plot device, this is a situation based on reality that almost all of us are familiar with, either because we have seen it, heard of it, or because we have lived it. A great example of this incessant comparison is present in songs like Wallflower by Billie Eilish, Lazy and Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, Jolene by Dolly Parton, and Tyrant and Sorry by Beyoncé. And it's also present in movies and TV shows like Daisy Jones and the Six and The Ugly Stepsister.
You know he loves you, Camilla. He's yours!
And of course, let's not forget the subversion of this concept in The Other Woman by Nina Simone, who goes beyond the initial trope that gives this elusive, ethereal, and even malevolent aura to the other woman, and sees her as the one who, although gets parts of the love she wants, she doesn't get the entirety of it and suffers because of it. So, if we put these ideas together, why did Carrie suggest this idea to divide women between simple girls and Katy girls? Easy. Because in a way, she did something we all do. We want to discover how to identify our own inadequacy against the other person who represents something we, apparently, have failed on. And instead of putting some responsibility on the person who makes us question our own self-esteem or even recognizing and working on our own flaws, we look for the cause of our rejection externally. We want to find a point of reference to recognize our own shortcomings, either to use them to lash out against what our quote-unquote enemy represents or what we don't like about ourselves. But is this habit a fair representation either of them or ourselves? How do we use their existence to measure our own?
I will never be the woman with the perfect hair who can wear white and not spill on it.
When we incur into the habit of shamelessly comparing ourselves with others, we either do it as a way to alleviate or punish our own ego. And Carrie Bradshaw, as flawed as she is, couldn't escape this habit, and she's a great example of how we go from one to the other. She punishes herself by comparing her petite frame, wild hair, outrageous style, and working-class background with her tall figure, combed silky hair, sober outfits, and her evident class and wealth. And this is emphasized on Season 3, Episode 3, Attack of the 5'10" Woman. The comparison against other women is the main topic of the episode for the four of them. Charlotte compares her body to other women's bodies at the spa, Miranda is shamed by her cleaning lady for not being feminine enough, and Samantha feels rejected because she wasn't getting the happy ending other women were getting in the massage room. And well, Carrie is comparing herself to Natasha. There's a humiliating contrast in the changing room between them. Natasha, as usual, looks perfect against Carrie, who comes out in her mismatched underwear with her classic messy hair and as vulnerable as you can be in a changing room facing your perceived worst enemy. All these things make Carrie feel undeniably inferior against her, so to soothe her ego and her self-esteem, she latches onto anything she can have to feel a little bit better about herself. For example, a little grammar mistake she saw on the thank you note Natasha sent at the end of the same episode.
It's a good thing she got married. The woman's an idiot.
Or basically the whole concept behind the simple girl thesis I've mentioned before. Because who is actually the simple girl? Or more precisely in this case, who is Natasha? After the affair with Big and a harsh confrontation with Charlotte, Carrie started to question what was behind the woman whose reflection she was confronting. She had to accept she didn't really know anything about her. She could have called her names and imagined scenarios where she commits criminal acts on them both, but Carrie didn't know Natasha. She was just projecting ideas onto her as a way to simplify or fit her own agenda.
Charlotte was right. What did I really know about Natasha?
The lack of knowledge about Natasha helps Carrie and us by extension place qualities, good and bad, in her. The simple girl is basically the lack of knowledge we have about the other person and the projection of our own insecurities. And well, us as the audience don't know much about Natasha either. Well, we do know she deserved better because Big is a pig. But even if our time with Natasha was limited, we could acknowledge some of the qualities she has just by the way she carries herself, and we notice that this simple girl is far from simple. Natasha is not just beautiful and rich. She has a career, since we learned she works for Ralph Lauren, and for the way she dresses and moves, we could sense she's balanced, calm, and projects herself as quietly confident for someone her age. We learned that she had left Big after the affair he had with Carrie, which demonstrates she has self-respect and values her time and presence. On one of everyone's favorite moments, she shows not only her composure but her character, and also a weight with words that almost drove the audience to the wrong conclusion, which, through her tone and pace, demonstrated how intelligent and calculated she could be.
Sorry about it all. I'm sorry he cheated on me with you. I'm sorry I found you in my apartment. Fell down the stairs and broke my tooth. Sorry that you felt the need to come down here. Now not only have you ruined my marriage, you've ruined my lunch.
Does that mean Natasha didn't at some point get into a position to question her own worth comparing herself with Carrie? Yes, I believe she did. Natasha has many evident qualities, but she's still human and she felt the pain of betrayal, and that includes the rejection she felt when Big went after Carrie behind her back. And this belief, although seemingly takes some power away from her, in my opinion, not only makes her more relatable, but also makes her whole behavior seem stronger and more admirable. Of course, she didn't manage this thought process the same way Carrie did, and she bounced back and entered the dating world right after the divorce, as she should. Let's also keep in mind this is far simpler for her because she already has the social capital that Carrie hoped to get in her relationship with Big, and if anything, she's higher in the social scale, so that will make that behavior not as lengthy or exhausting as Carrie's. Even when Natasha is composed, intelligent, classy, and she wisely chose to remove herself from all that situation, it doesn't take away the pain she might have felt and the potential possibility that, at least for a brief moment, she might have questioned her worth and projected some of this insecurity on Carrie. So after all the meditation about this love triangle, we still have to ask, what does it really mean to be the chosen one, and why is the comparison so prevalent in this case and in real life? This goes beyond the very questionable situation that causes a person to become the other one, which once again I have to emphasize, I don't condone cheating. This goes straight to the perception we have of ourselves. A perception that shows us how strong is our identity and our self-worth when we face situations that makes us question it. And this is the core element of the obsession with our perceived competition. Of course, besides the very evident lack of emotional intelligence and honesty that someone who juggles two or more people has against any of the ones involved. We may see our position as part of that person's life in danger, as well as it cracks our own sense of identity and even our self-esteem. If I'm replaceable for someone I love, then in how many ways am I replaceable as well? What if by my loved one exchanging me for someone else, I'm also replaceable in my job, my friend group, and even my family? How important do I consider myself to be if my place can be easily taken by someone else?
Why do I keep doing this to myself? I must be a masochist or something.
So Carrie didn't obsess with Natasha in particular. She obsessed with any woman who had the recognition and the attention from Big that she could barely hold herself. Because having Big by her side increased her self-esteem, but since her position in his life was stable, she would have always depended on his approval to see herself as valuable.
I think about you all the time. No. Correction. I think about us all the time.
And we noticed how that shaped her self-worth. Going back to the way we were, the reason why they were able to continue their lives independently while in the relationship is because although the love they shared together was strong, their loyalty to their own identities was still stronger. During their relationship, both merged their lives, but none of them completely sacrificed her own character for the other. Which is something that Natasha succeeded, but Carrie unfortunately didn't. Natasha was hurt but quickly recognized her strengths and her power to carry on and find a better life. Carrie didn't, and she allowed herself to be strung along for many years for someone who didn't fully appreciate her quirks and her good traits the way she deserved. And this is exactly why the thesis Carrie proposed failed, because the root of the comparison with another one is a sense of stability in ourselves.
I am beautiful and powerful, and I don't care that you're only 25 and married my ex.
And in order to reclaim our power back, we need to stop pointing to what the other represents and identify what actually deserves more attention in us. The other one is not an enemy, but an opportunity to see ourselves closely. And I believe this is a heavily important point in this whole discourse. The idea that we shouldn't allow our value to be defined by our own insecurities or our lack or even the people who may signal that to us, and instead use them as mirrors of how much we have grown or how much growth we still have left. This will also help us identify what places and people are better suited for us so we don't have to sacrifice our identity and our peace of mind to be attached to a situation that doesn't belong to us nor give us anything in return but pain and frustration. It's important to understand that in a world that asks us to compete with others to deserve some attention, recognition, and respect, the best way we can rebel against that path is to provide our inner self with the care, discipline, and empathy we've always deserved, and to be thankful and proud for who we are and the person we're becoming every day.
It's hard to find people who will love you no matter what.
Here we go. Nice. Everybody looks beautiful.
I was lucky enough to find 3 of them.
If you have any opinions about this topic, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments down below. And once again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Bye bye!